Welcome to Talks with the Invisible Gardener. I'm Andy Lopez, your host. This is where we dig into soil health and learn how to grow smarter organically. Ready to clean up your garden and the planet? Let's go. Don't panic, it's organic. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is Andy Lopez. I have a wonderful show for you today, so let's get started. Today is how to properly make your own biological tea. So you may not know what a biological tea is, so I'll explain that in the show. And you like my little critters? Everybody's here having a wonderful time. Glad to see you back. So let's start with compost tea, because that's what people understand mostly about biological teas. There are lots of different kinds. So compost tea is one of the easiest things to make, because you make compost and then you learn how to make a tea out of it. And so it's important to really make the best compost that you can make. So it's important to, when you choose the right compost, with different ways to make compost. So if you just make compost one way, you can make a tea out of it. But if you specifically want to make a tea out of it, and you're making the compost to make tea, like for example, if you're in the business and you want to make a tea that you can compost tea that you can spray on customers' properties, so there's a special way to make that compost. And that's very important, because it needs to have all the trace minerals in it. It needs to have a wider assortment of biology, which you should be making anyway when you make your compost. There should be an incredible mixture of nutrients and all this biology in it. And the process on how to brew it, because that's important. See, one of the things you want to do when you make your tea is you want to energize it. By brewing it, what it really means is you bubble it. You bubble. You have oxygen flowing through your tea. There's lots of different devices you can buy on the market now. That basically, what they look like is aquarium bubblers that have bubbles through the aquarium, and they provide oxygen to the water. And oxygen is what the little biology creatures in the tea want, because you can quadruple 1,000 or even 1,000 times, depending on how long you bubble it. So that's what you want. You want it as most concentrated as possible. And then there are specialized teas you can do, because I'll cover that a little bit more later for you. But the specialized tea would be very simple if you there's a wide variety of teas that you can make. This is different than the compost tea, but basically it's the same thing. But specialized means you're doing it for roses, or you're doing for your lawn, or you have a tree that you want to deal with. So for me, a specialized tea would be if I'm going to like today I went out and did a customer citrus pines. They have phytophthora disease. So what I do is, in the tea mix, I add some biology, which I buy in the store. There are different kinds of mycorrhiza, endo and ectomycorrhiza, for example. There are two different types of mycorrhiza. You can also get all kinds of other specialized biology, specifically that I've learned from experience, that to combat diseases. And so it's important that for the tree, for example, the phytophthora is basically a disease of malnutrition. They're missing out important trace minerals. So you make sure you include all the trace minerals in it. And there are lots of different ways you can make a trace mineral tea, okay? And there are different products on the market now that they're very, very rich in the trace minerals. And you don't really want to use salt, even though there are some salts on the market that you can use. And C90, SCA90 is one of them. There's also a couple other ones on the market that you can buy. You just have to be careful. You're using the salts. You have to use small trace minerals amount. And then there are other types of garden teas you can make. I'll give you an example. So the reason why they're called garden teas is because you get it from the garden. So you can choose any. So all plants have biology come with them, right? Even weeds. And one of the easiest. So if you have a lot of weeds, you don't throw the weeds away. You make a tea from the weeds, because the weeds they're basically called Mother Nature's medicine. And so you learn that you get a wide variety of tea, you put it in water, you let it sit in the sun, you stir it up, and that's your basically, then you take that and you strain it out. That's your tea. And you can make you bubble it, you can add that to your worm juice, you can add that to it. to increase the biology. So there are different kinds of teas. Also, too, like I make sprouts a lot. So sprouts, the liquid. When you make sprouts, you soak the sprouts in a liquid overnight. I learned a long time ago when I was with uh, the Health Hippocrates Institute. You make a compost tea, and also there is a bunch of different people that um, so that make a tea from the liquid. It's called Rejuvelac, and basically that when you make it when you soak it overnight, that water is full of this very specific biology that the sprouts have. All plants, all seeds have their own biology. When you sprout them, they give off that biology because that's the way they work in nature. You plant them in the ground, and they give off the biology to encourage them to grow in the ground. So that's the different kinds of compost tea that garden teas that you make. And so that's really very cool. So you can learn how to blend it. It's not a problem to blend all different kinds of teas together. Uh, but you will get better at certain things are better. Certain types of teas are better for certain types of plants. That's because they're richer in certain minerals that those plants are lacking. That's why I talk about weeds, because weeds basically, if you're growing in a garden and you have a mineral deficiency, the weeds that are growing in that garden are the weeds that tell you what minerals you're deficient in. Because you just use your iPhone or whatever, and it tells you information on the plant. It says rich in iron, rich in calcium. Well, that's what you're missing in your garden. Let's see what comes up next. So the earthworm tea is the one I specialize in. I have a worm farm. I think we did a show on how to have your own worm farm. If not, we'll have one coming up. So I use a worm tea because the worms are, when I started gardening, I always look for worms. When I was young, I realized that if there's no worms in the soil, there's something wrong with the soil. Because earthworm castings, I used to buy earthworm castings, are very rich in minerals. And I figured, well, and the worms produce a highly minerally rich liquid, and also a highly biologically rich liquid. And you have to, one of the things that's important is that all these things, because they're biologically active, have to be used right away, 24 to 48 hours. Even 48 hours is pushing it, right? It's pushing it a little bit. And so the brewing techniques are very similar. As you can see in the picture here, you make a tea bag, a tea bag out of your compost of the earthworm. You don't really. This is a process of making compost tea, because the way you make earthworm tea is not so much you put it in the bag; it's that you have your worm farm and you process you give the worms a bath and the filtered water. It filters through the worm farm. It comes down in a container, and that container is your worm tea. See, it's a little bit different. That you don't need to put, but you can. People have taken when your worm farm is full and you need to change it. That's a very good bag. So basically, it's called earthworm compost. See, right? Because it came from your earthworms, and so that makes it very, very biologically, minerally rich tea. Because when I make my worm farm, I add biochar to it. I add a wide variety of other local things that are growing around my garden, because I know that the plants that will be eaten by the worms. I give them worm food, organic food. All these are lots of different foods are organic, but they're also rich, right? And one reason why you eat organic foods is because they're rich in the minerals, right? And so, but by making a super earthworm tea, basically what I do is I add all these other things to it instead of just a worm tea by itself, earthworm tea by itself. So I add the same things that I do when I normally add. So you have to be real careful when you're adding things to it. Like, for example, rock dust. You can add rock dust to your worm farm, but you have to go very, very light. So what I learned to do is how to make the super worm tea is not to do it in the worm bin, but I get the liquid from the worm juice, I put it in a container, and then I add stuff to it, like seaweed, C90. I can add different sources of seaweed, liquid seaweed to it. I can add all kinds of other biology to it. And there are lots of different things on the market you can buy now. It's really, really cool. And that becomes your super earthworm tea. Okay. You don't really want to do it in your worm farm, because you're going to kill the worms. They can't handle all those things. This is like my worm farm right there. See? And I did that because I use a lot of the liquid. You don't have to have such a big setup. You could do it if you do have a little farm, but for your backyard, you need for your own personal use. You could use, there are many different earthworm farms you can buy on the market. You can buy your own earthworm farm. I know one lady that she was throwing away a dresser drawer, and she made that into different. She punched holes in each of the shelves, and she had the drawers that came out, and she would have different layers. And so what she did was she would start at the very very bottom drawer that had holes in it too. But what she did was she set it on a tray. So when it leaked on the tray and the liquid came out. And so as the worms grew in there, then she opened the second drawer, was up, the next layer up. And she did it again. She put different layers like I'm doing here, putting layers and stuff and putting food. The worms will crawl up through the hole that's in the bottom of the drawer into the second layer. Then we eat through that. And then when it was, really full, you can see that there's massive amounts of worm. You have the fourth, it depends how many drawers you have, but the third drawer, punch holes in the bottom, start the process again. The worms will go up to that drawer. So it was really very easy to do. There's one that's made with it, like it goes straight up with drawer, straight up, and basically they have a hole that goes up, and it's filtered water. It slowly filters the water percolates through it, and then it has a little pump that pumps it out into a container. So you can be very creative in how you make your teas. So and that's basically called boosting your tea's power with biological ingredients. As I said before, you can add a wide variety of things to this tea, but you don't really need to add it into your worm farm, into your worm bed. You just mainly want to feed the worms. Worms will eat carbon. They need carbon. So I use biochar. I use cardboard. Those you see the newspapers, they're shredded up. All these are safe and clean for worms to use. One of the things you don't want to use if your newspaper has color in it. So those are dyes that you don't want to do. They're toxic to the worms. You do want to feed them organic food. We talked about this earlier on how to feed your worms. So you can take a look at the show and you'll get more detail on it. And then there are a wide variety of soil markers that you can use too. Those are the things you can buy in the store. I go to one of my favorite shopping places. I have a garden center I go through, and you'll see they'll say this microbe this microbe for that. But basically, they're like freeze dried. As soon as you add it to water, they become alive and bubble it with oxygen. They start producing more microbes. And by garden fresh addition, basically, like I said before, if you have a garden and you're growing tomatoes, you can always put the whole tomato plant into your worm bin, or you can make a tea from that. You can literally soak in the water in the sun with a tomato plant, or if you're using, I have lots of herbs, and the herbs are wonderful to use, but you can't put them in the worm farm because their worms do not like the herbs; are too strong for them. But you can make a tea out of it by literally letting it sit in the sun, stirring up for a few days, and use that liquid to add that to your worm juice that you already have. And there are a wide variety. As I mentioned, I talked about rock dust. You have to be careful. You can use the rock dust in your liquid, but again, when you have a liquid, if you use too much rock dust, it'll basically kill everything. So remember, it's trace minerals that you want. So you want to go very, very lightly. And there are a wide variety of sources out there in the market. Fish emulsion is wonderful to use if you don't mind the smell of it. And there are lots of other things you can get calcium rich. One of the things that there's many companies that make things from plants. They're plant-based mineral sources. And so this is my little worm farm I have. It's on an angle that way it drips down from one. When you water it, it drips all the way in this corner. Normally would have this is like the very first start. It's just before I started making stuff, and I didn't have the tray under there to catch the water. But there are many, many uses for your tea. So you'll learn that you can spray roses with it. You can spray trees with it. Spray your lawn with it. It is especially wonderful if you make your tea from worms, because one of the things that benefits that comes up from the worm juice is you have little earthworm eggs. So you'll find that when you're making a tea, because you're not heating it up, right? You're not heating the tea. You're just basically adding oxygen through it. And if you make the tea right, you're not going to kill the worm eggs. And so when you're spraying the worm's eggs or you're pouring around the base of the plants, you're going to find that they are going to start hatching. You're going to get more and more worms because when you make your tea, it makes biologically more active your soil, and then you have more worms. And so, but so you have to, the teas can be used for many, many things, right? And so you just learn from experience what is best to use. And so one of the ways that I do is I do a sprayings because I've learned from experience that when I work with customers, their trees, their soil, they don't really have any soil. There's nothing there. So if I spray a soilless environment, the biology dies. That's why it's also very important you combine it with bringing in compost. When I do a customer, I basically will bring in some very, very good compost and then apply that compost to the earth and then spray it. And when I spray it, the compost would become inoculated. The biology will live more and more in the compost or in the soil. So you really need soil to make the biology work. And so that's why I use foliar feeding. And there are many different. What's important about when you do that machine that I have there is a specific type of sprayer. So there's two kinds of sprayers on the market. One has a cylinder. It's a metal cylinder that revolves and basically pushes the liquid through the two grinding. It's really grinding, rotating rods, and it compresses it and it goes out. The other kind is a diaphragm that goes back and forth and pushes it out. So one way will kill all your biology and one way won't. And one way, with the diaphragm going back and forth, you will have to have a special nozzle, which is a little bigger, allows biology to go through. When you're using chemicals, it's just the tiny little opening is all you need because it's everything dissolves in water. But when you're using spraying biology, you need to have a specific. So so like for example, I tell people often to go to Acres USA, which is a really cool organic farming magazine, and they sell everything there. All the equipment are specifically for compost spraying. So this particular unit that I have is a compost sprayer. It's made to spray. It's an arborist compost sprayer. They spray compost seed. It does not kill the biology. So be very careful that you use the right kind of spraying equipment. Otherwise, you will be destroying your biology. Now, there are lots of commercial tea products out there, and the real problem with the commercial tea products is that they're not alive. You have to have something living. That's why I like the earthworms. That's why I like to make my own. I make my own, or I buy compost that's fresh. So the thing with the commercial tea product, they'll come in little bags, and they'll say added to water, and so it has the nutrients in it, but not the biology. It's not a living product. Same thing with compost. If you go to the store and buy compost, it's been in a bag. Who knows how long it's been in a plastic bag? It does not have the biology in it. So when you buy compost, you want to buy it from the person that made it. You want to buy it and use it as soon as possible. Let's see what you got here. Right. So the important thing is that biology, right? It's all about the biology. You have to remember that's what it's all about. The biology. So I do is I get minerals and I feed it to the biology, and then I spray it out. I learn that spraying becomes instantly. The biology lands on it's called foliar feeding, lands on the leaves, and the leaves of the plant absorbs the minerals. So when you're soaking the ground, the biology goes in there too. So it's very important to do it right away when you're make sure that it's alive. One of the ways you can tell if it's alive or not, if you make compost tea or earthworm tea, and you let it sit for 3 days, it stinks. It smells. Everything dies. You go, phew, what happened? What died, right? And so then you can tell. So that means you can't really buy anything in the store unless it's alive. And it's not. I saw a product the other day. So it says worm tea. It's in the plastic container, and it's not a living thing. If I put my worm tea in that plastic container, it would puff up, and eventually, when you open it up, it goes, phew, wow, right? It would die. So it's important to have a natural living in a product which you're using. So if you're not getting the results from your tea, it's because you don't have the biology in it. If you buy compost in the store and try to make compost tea from that, you're not going to get anything from it. You're not going to get any smell. It could be in containers for the rest of his lifetime. Nothing's going to be coming out. And that's why it supports the soil sustainability needs. See, because that's what you want to do. There's another thing that's important, and I'm not really mentioned here, but so one of the things I tell people is that did you know that city water kills the biology? So if you don't have a whole property filtration system, right? If you don't have a whole property filtration system, no matter what even if you have the best compost that's alive, right? I get the best compost from my friends. They make it. But if the customer does not have a whole property filtration system, that water that they spray on a regular basis, the sprinkler system, is going to kill the biology. People say, well, why do you have to come every month and spray? Well, because every day or every week you're sprinkling water, city water, that kills the biology. See, so if you want to be sustainable, you have to learn how to stop the process of destroying your soil biology. That's what you have to do. See, otherwise you're not going to get anywhere. You will have problems. It's better than using the chemical way. You know, it does help and everything. And when you initially make it, it does. That's one reason if you don't change your city water filter and you add compost, you're going to have to add compost on a regular basis and make the tea on a regular basis and apply the biology to it. But if you was to test your soil, you'll see, well, gee, this should be rich in biology. It isn't, because the sprinkler systems are constantly destroyed. And I think maybe this might be the end here. Yeah. So thank you very much for watching the show, guys. I have a lot of great shows coming up. Feel free to like and share and follow. Make a comment. Pretty soon I'm gonna start doing some live sessions so we can talk about it. And you keep an eye out for online workshops. And visit my website, invisiblegardener.com. Sign up for the newsletter. And that way you can tell all the good things that are happening. I'm giving away my Don't Panic, It's Organic ebook at the moment. And you can easily just, what you do is you go to the website, you do the inquiry form, and you say, Andy, I saw your show. I would like a free copy of my Don't Panic, It's Organic ebook. And I will be happy to send it to you. It won't be available free for long because I'm basically going to be putting it up on the website. I do have a few other books. I have a whole bunch of ebooks that we're processing. I've done a lot of books throughout my career, so I'm going to be upgrading all the ebooks. I have a book, ebook, Natural Pest Control Alternatives with Chemicals for the Home Garden. It's a great book, but it's now an ebook. That'll be available too. But for now, you can get the Don't Panic, It's Organic ebook for free. It's a color version of it. A few people have gotten the ebook and they went to the store and bought it, which is the black and white version. You're not going to get the color version unless you contact me directly, because it's a long story. But when I had it available, people in Amazon, they were taking the color. The third-party sellers, they can sell the books, right? And they were selling it for $300. And I said, why are you selling? People saying, why are you selling your book for $300? Well, I'm not the one that's selling it. These people are selling it. So I contacted them and they said, well, your book is worth $300. We're going to sell it, which is true. The knowledge in there, the information is there, is absolutely amazing. So I stopped selling. So if you want the color version of it, you have to get a hold of me, and I'll be happy to sell it to you. It's $40. That's $20 for the black and white version of it. If you get the color version of it, you want to take care of that because it's a very special book. So take care, guys. I look forward to seeing you next week, and have a great day. Bye now. It's been great. I'm Andy Lopez. Thanks for hanging out with me on Talks with the Invisible Gardener. If you like what you heard, hit follow, drop a like, and leave a comment. I actually read them. Want more good dirt? Visit invisiblegardener.com. And remember, don't panic, it's organic.